Time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic do. I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone, and we are your guides on your journey into the heart of the primordial. I was
Welcome
just going to
to,
say into the heart of the primordial without the journey bit.
yeah, that happens. Welcome to Season 9, Episode 10. And that's where we're going. And
And
that's the
that's where we're
title.
going.
Yep.
Okay. And it's my 101st episode.
Yes, 101.
101. It's a good number. I like
All right.
it.
All right. Since Michaela and I have no idea what this episode's about, there have been no hints, no nothing. And I'm going to start with I've had an interesting week. I have been like magicked out of the wazoo.
Well, that sounds like a really good place to start. Go for it.
Yeah. For the first time, well, not the first time, but I've never, ever, we did it twice this week, that I've had to cast a spell and then I had to cast a spell right after it to mitigate the effects of the first spell.
All of the effects or some of them?
Um, for the potential outcome to people who aren't really affected by the spell, who aren't supposed to be affected by the spell.
So, like the second one would be a sort of containment.
Yes, a containment and a management.
Okay. That's interesting. I wonder why it couldn't happen in the first one.
Um, the impression I got from the first one, it's a spillover of effect that other people aren't ready for, but for the target of the spell, but was ready for, or should be ready for.
Or they're getting it whether they're ready or not.
Right. So this was just to mitigate the spillover. And today I did another spell like that, where this was like a transformation.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if it was to ease the transformation or to ease me from the blowback of the transformation.
My instincts tell me it's the latter because transformation by its nature
Hmm.
can't be made easier, I don't think.
No,
Like, think of a caterpillar that has to turn to goo before it becomes a butterfly.
right.
There's no way you can make that process easier.
No, that's true. And that was the metaphor for the transformation too.
It's a good one. It's a good one because it's astounding when you look at what happens, and we all know it happens.
Yeah.
But the explanation for, well, you have a caterpillar and it eats as much as it can and it gets fat and then it wraps itself up and then what? If
Yeah.
it literally dissolves and then reassembles, like if that's not magic, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Like what else does that?
And
That's
this
a
one
hell of a
had,
transformation.
yeah, very much so. A metamorphosis, if you will. Another word to add to the
Right.
list of descriptions of what's the difference between these words. No
Yeah,
one has
yeah.
tried yet so far from that list.
But I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. You can't make that easy.
No,
There's, there's,
no,
there's no way turning to goo can be pleasant.
right. And it was a very energetic transformation in the sense of there was a lot of, well, when the chrysalis was broken, it was very explosive.
Oh, okay.
So I can see where there was a need for a mitigation spell to go with it against blowback because it was like quite literally an explosion that finished the transformation.
Okay. So no subtleties here then.
No, it was very I have no idea how the transformation was on the person who was in part of the transformation, but with magic, you don't always know, right? Because you're doing stuff across the world sometimes or wherever.
Hmm. It's true. And I mean, I think you can get some idea if you
Mm,
know if that person's working in magic, what's their brand, if you will. You
mm,
know, are they more water oriented or earth, or do they do the fire and chaos thing like me? Because if it's fire and chaos, then, well, that's how it's gonna go. It's not gonna be, gently on the waves.
mm.
Possibly a tsunami, but not gently on the waves.
That's a good
So,
question. I'm gonna look
mhm.
into that later and explore that after.
Yeah, I think particularly when your practice involves other people, either as recipients or partners in it,
Right.
it's kind of key to consider what they're bringing to the party and how it's likely to present from their perspective, from their aspect, if you will. Um, because somebody that's not ready to deal with chaos
Mm,
might want to be careful around people who tend to work with that.
right.
Maybe that's not the direction to go in, and this isn't necessarily for you, but it's for somebody that
Mm,
be aware of what's on the other end or with whom you are partnering, um, because it will make a difference. Just like when you take medication.
right.
One medicine on its own is one thing. The other medicine on its own is another thing. Put those two together, and you got a whole other ball game going on. This is
Right.
this is something else entirely. So even if you've considered, well, I'm like this and they're like that, but what does that do when you put them together?
Yes. Yeah,
That
that's a good point.
that becomes a whole other level. If you've got chaos and water together, for example, then you probably have a whirlpool or you've got a funnel, the water tornado thing, whatever those are called, the water spouts. Um, and that's not going to be soft and peaceful.
No, that's very true. You know what else is coming to mind? So my whole week has been about, it's been very magical and it's been very much about the idea of, so what kept showing up in my feed was people talking about transcending in various
Hmm.
different forms and in there's different traditions and whatever. And the last one I had watched, it was about Dilemma, the magic system, right? That came up, that Aleister Crowley came up with. And we had talked about it, right, when we were talking about Babylon. And everything I was learning that I was running into this week kind of popped up when I was watching this video. And it's the everyone is shooting for transcendence, but transcendence is an inevitability. You are eventually going to transcend, regardless of the steps you take. That's the message I got all week.
Hmm. Perhaps patience is the missing ingredient then.
Right. The law, it'll take a lo- So the wording is that I'm getting, the longer you live in denial of who you are, the longer it'll take you to transcend. Transcendent is not about going out and doing something active. It is just about more taking the time and just understanding who you are. And of course, this goes over multiple lifetimes. This has a whole, but the thing is, it's inevitable.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I mean, from my understanding, my belief, if you will, is that much depends on where you end up when as
Mm,
to how long it takes. Meaning, there's a Buddhist thought that I kind of like right here, which is heaven has layers,
right.
hell has layers. View them not as the Christian version of you're
Mm,
going to hell and there you are roasting forever over a spit or whatever, but or heaven and you sit on a cloud and play a harp. No, mercifully, it's neither of those things. But
right.
but the heaven and the hells, they have layers, And think of them more as dimensions.
Right.
Okay, now when you start visualizing these different dimensions, heaven is probably the toughest one to deal with because when you're in a any given layer and the further into it you get, actually the harder it is because you don't realize for the longest time that you actually need to get out of there to keep moving forward.
Right.
You get lulled, if you
Yes.
will. You get stuck in the, oh, hey, this is fun. This is nice. It's a bit like my favorite canoe on the river
Yes.
example. This is the part where you're floating down the river with your fishing rod hanging out and you're just enjoying perfect weather and no mosquitoes, right?
Mm.
So you don't realize that, oh, if I don't actually do something about this, I'm going to get wicked ass sunburn
Right.
and, I'll end up lost and all the other things. Like you just forget that there's something else you need to be doing. And the hell realms,
Mm.
well, that's a period of time where it's harder to get out of them because there's lots of traps and tricks
Hmm.
and things to keep you stuck. So you have to have a different set of realizations from there
Right.
that, oh, I don't need to keep trying hard. I need to stop trying hard and actually pay attention to where I am. And so in these different dimensions, the work is different in order for you to be able to get back to a place where you continue growing.
Yes.
I hope all of that made sense. So with the whole transcendence thing, it really depends on how much time you spend in which place and how long it takes you to realize that you need to get out of there and how to do it in order to get to the next dimension of whatever existence you're going to next.
Right. Well, it's I think the basic concept is this, right? You have an internal drive. At some point, that drive is going to kick in. That drive always has an effect on you, even if for some people it takes longer than others. It's still there. Even if you're in heaven and everything's feeling good, at some point you're going to remember, oh yeah, I got to do something.
Yeah, it can just take longer
Yeah.
um, because you don't have the motivation.
Right. But yeah, so eventually what I'm getting at is you don't have to do a million ceremonies. You don't have to learn all these esoteric things. You just have to, at some point, even just let the flow happen and go
Mhm.
along with it. It's to say that everyone's an individual. Like we've been saying this on the thing, right? Your magic is your magic. It's you does what you need, and that is essentially the truth of the universe. You are who you are, and you need to do what you need to do. And you have your timetable, and you have your what pushes you, what doesn't push you, but everything is always still pushing you forward. Your past is pushing you forward, regardless of what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And if you think about what I
Mm.
just said, it tips the Christian notion
Mm.
of getting to heaven is the be all and end all.
Right.
It flips that entirely into a place of it's actually a bit of a trap, right?
Yes.
It's not the be all and end all. It's a trap that you have to work your way out of again. And realizing it's a trap is a big part of that whole deal, right?
Well,
Remembering,
yes.
remembering that it's a trap when you get there.
Yes. That's the thing. I don't know how much about I don't know. I don't know how much about my week is going to be translated into this episode or shared in this episode. But yes, one of those things is remembering that some things are traps. And you're right. If you go back and you look into the Bible and you look at what heaven is, I don't know how else to describe it other
Mhm.
than it's a trap. Like, I mean, but and we discussed this before, but it's like basically, so heaven comes to earth. That's the first one. You're not like you don't die and go to heaven. You're in the ground. And then when judgment day comes, heaven comes to earth. Earth becomes heaven. And then your only job really in heaven is just to tell God how awesome he is. So I don't know how much of that's a space you really want to be in. I know the culture around Christianity has made heaven to be able to be something else. Like it's this great thing where your wildest dreams come true, but it's not. Your wildest dream is supposed to be honoring God. That's it.
And yeah, and wow, now I've made it. I don't think there's a human alive that actually would believe that that would be the ultimate thing. Like it just,
I don't think anyone does.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think
Yeah.
there's a human alive that thinks that way. Um, Even the most pious of people.
Mm.
I mean, seriously, are you living your life in a miserable way in order to have a better life later? And that's it? That's as good as
Mhm.
it gets? Wow. Like seriously, no thanks.
That's the thing, right?
That's a horrifying concept to me. That's it. That's the ultimate. Wow.
Yeah.
No.
It's not about enlightenment. It's not about being a better person. It's not about all those things. It's about how willing you are to be pious to God.
People go for this. This is why I'm really not a fan of anybody's religion. It's, you believe what you want to believe. Obviously, there's nobody
Mm,
that can stop you. Um, and nor would I wish to. However, I find it harder and harder to understand how people stay stuck in that, right? Like it's a fascinating thing to watch when somebody's
mm,
really religious and they're doing this thing, they're trying to tell you about it, and you're just like, I don't know, can you hear yourself?
yeah.
Have you listened to what it is you're telling people you believe? And then you tell me that, witchcraft is bad or
Mm,
the goddesses don't exist or something like that. Really? That's how could you possibly believe in the one and not the
yeah.
others? But also, I just have so many questions all the time about it.
Mm,
And what fascinates me is the social science side of things, where people can be convinced of this.
mm,
Typically, it's at an early age, but not always.
right.
And they're convinced of it, and they will hang on to it most tenaciously. Like it's a lifeline to what? I just, yeah, I can just sit there listening to people
Mm,
fascinated, and I will periodically punctuate with, but really,
yeah.
really, that you believe this? It works for you, does it? Like I am so fascinated. How?
And it's interesting, right? Because I think you can only get that when you go monotheistic. I think the minute you have multiple gods, you can't do that
Hmm.
because multiple gods have multiple purviews, and therefore you ask a god for something that's in their realm of influence. And but once you make all the gods one god, and the one god has all realms of influence, you have no other choice but to depend on that god, or at least that's what you're told. And so you you can get stuck down that road if you believe there's only one god. Then that's where you're stuck because you can't go anywhere else. But if you have like a dozen gods to choose from, and one god seems more suited to you than another one, well, you can favor that god over another. But it doesn't mean you're not going to go and deal with that other one.
Well, it's a lot easier to have a relationship with the deity of choice
Mm-hmm.
if it's a deity of choice,
Right.
that you resonate with and you get the sense that that deity resonates with you, then it's much more meaningful, I think, than having this dude who's watching your every move and you have to go through usually another dude to get to
Mm-hmm.
that dude. And it's like, what are we duding about here? There's a little too much um dudositiness going on.
Yeah.
You have
In a
to.
bit of a divine sausage party here.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
It is a divine sausage party. I like that. And I mean it really is. It's like, why why am I even here if I'm so negligible? And yet women are the world. Like nobody exists without a woman giving birth to them. So if women are so insignificant, why are they so important? How can it be both at the same time? And yet, we're like the furthest removed when you look at those religions. A man can become the
Yeah.
person that you go to God through,
Mm,
whereas a woman typically can't. Now, I know some religions are changing
mm,
that, but it's reluctantly, and it's still like, oh yeah, we have a woman in that particular church or a woman in that synagogue, but three-quarters of the religion won't acknowledge them. It's just this small group that are progressive. So we haven't moved very far yet.
no, the more I, look into like pre-Christian religions, the more you actually see like Christianity really did a number
Hmm.
on how everything works magically, spiritually. Like, and I don't know how many people who still listen to this who are actually still going to church and still being Christian and stuff like that. Like, I don't think there's any left, in all honesty. I really don't. I know I say like
I
you're all
wouldn't have thought
welcome here,
so.
you are, but I don't think there is any that still
Uh,
listen.
by now, I wouldn't have thought so because if they're okay, if they're paying attention to what we're
Right.
saying, then you got to be questioning. You got to be asking yourself, like, okay, how is having the body of Christ and the blood
Mm,
of Christ at communion every week, how is that not witchcraft? I mean, there's incense being waved around. There's all
yep.
kinds of stuff going on if you're looking at Catholicism,
Hmm.
and they call it high church.
Yep.
Well, okay, we could also call it witchcraft really
Mm,
easily. The priests are saying spells and they're doing all kinds of magical mudras, movements and what
yep.
have you. And then you have this is my body, this is my
Hmm.
blood, etc. etc. What? And you're going to tell me that's not witchcraft? Of course it is,
Yeah.
but they took it and made it into something that, okay, you can see it's witchcraft. I can see it's
Mm,
witchcraft. None of us are allowed to call it that. And we'll all have to
yeah.
agree on that. And
Yeah.
and somehow that became a thing. And I mean, you've even got the robes and like, come on, man, this is so witchcraft. It's how could it not be? How could anybody walk into a Catholic church
Right.
and also hold the viewpoint that witchcraft is bad?
Well, I
Because you're
mean,
doing it.
and I'll put it from what I understood, originally the church didn't care. Witchcraft was not an issue for the early church. It was only, I'm trying to remember what was mentioned. Basically, leading up to things like, the Spanish Inquisition and all that, the times, because like church was, Catholicism was losing its followers. Like it was just like, you know what, if you're just going to pull me away from my traditions and still do something resembling my traditions, I'm just going back to my traditions.
Right.
Right? And that was only then that it started to become an issue because before there were stories of priests who were like, roaming the countryside and they'd hear someone's a witch and they'd see them being persecuted and they'd go leave them alone. What the hell are you talking about? They're fine. And the priest would actually say, hey, don't worry about it. They're perfectly fine to do what they're doing. And then they would go on their business. But then it was only then when the church was starting to lose its popularity that it became an issue that there were witches.
And the reason the popularity was a
Mm.
problem was because with the popularity comes money.
Yep.
And as soon as the witches are healing better than the church's prayers are, then you've got a problem, right? But that's just one example of a religion that, I mean, it's such a great example though, because clearly those rituals and the icons and everything that are all over the place, you've got your holy water, like, oh my God, it's just endless. You've got it is a witchcraft temple right there when you walk
Mm-hmm.
in. It's got all the things, everything that you could possibly hope for. It's absolutely full on witchcraft situation, and then you can start looking at the other religions and see where theirs are. But,
Yeah.
I only just learned about Mormonism and that they have,
Yeah. Yeah.
in their church, I guess That's what they call it. In their church, they've got 12 apostles and they've got a prophet. What? What do you
Mm.
mean you've got a prophet? What? And somebody decide who decides who that is? Like I didn't get that piece of information, but I'm fascinated.
The bishop hands down the whoever is your bishop passes down that information to you.
Oh, wonderful.
Like I
Wonderful.
had said before,
Okay.
Patrick's mother had converted because her husband was Mormon, and it was very interesting discussions I'd have with her. She's like, "Oh, I was chosen to work in the library." I'm like, "Were they short a librarian? So suddenly it was convenient that you didn't have a task, so now you're chosen for the library."
And yes, I do find the language used to be both interesting and incredibly annoying because they do use that language of, well, we have been told and you were
Mm.
chosen and
Yeah.
the message is, there's a complete absence of personal responsibility when somebody gives you a job,
Yep.
right? Especially because they want you to do it for free.
Hmm.
So and not only that, but you're expected to work as well and then give them money from you working. No wonder they've
Yeah.
got friggin' tons of money. Like, what a gig. What an absolute gig. Hey, come here, listen to everything I say. I'm going to give you a job to do because we
Mm.
need somebody over there doing that thing. And you have to go and work in paid employment and bring your money back and give us a big chunk
Yep.
and then tell us how amazing we are.
Hmm.
Like, holy cow, who came up with that for a program? Like, can
Well,
can you
my
say
yeah,
cult?
yeah.
Because listen to the setup.
There is one interesting thing with Mormonism, though. I will say, if what I have understood about it is true. So the whole men can have multiple wives thing was not a thing until basically the Mormon men were basically going to kill Joseph Smith. And then Joseph Smith said, okay. Because at first it was just only Joseph Smith could have multiple wives and basically have
Right.
the women, right? Just like, David Koresh and all the other leaders of these little cults that pop up, right? It's only the leader who can have the women. Well, in Mormonism, a bunch of guys, I guess a bunch of the males were like, yeah, no, we're not putting up with that shit. And basically Joseph Smith was like, no, 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 you misunderstand me. If you're a man, you can have multiple wives. So Mormonism kind of got to change when people were basically when Joseph Smith was kind of in danger. So there was some changes that were made to now. I mean,
How wonderfully holy that is.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
but so Mormonism is
Oh,
unique kind of in that sense. I know it's to my
it's
understanding of it.
unique, period.
Yeah.
Yes. Huh.
Well,
And literally you could pick a religion and throw it at me and I'm going to pick it apart
yeah.
because that's the whole thing. They are all there to be picked apart. I mean, I'm a big fan of Buddhism, as you know,
Mm, yes.
but Buddhism, the philosophy, rather than Buddhism, the rituals.
Well,
Because again,
yeah.
they have a lot of magical rituals. I mean, look at Tantric Buddhism and
Mm,
look at Mahayana, which is the maroon
mm,
robes, high Himalayas,
hmm.
Dalai Lama's bunch. They do magic all the time. And they have a lot of animism in that religion because it
Right.
comes from the Bon religion, which was in the region before Buddhism arrived. And it openly said, oh, hey, we're just going to incorporate that into what we do and let's rock and roll. So they still, however, have women are a step away.
Mm.
Women aren't as close as men to the whole thing. I've even heard it said women can't attain enlightenment.
No,
They
eh?
have to come back as a man. Not all sects of Buddhism say that, but some of them do.
I will add this, okay? This is just something I heard someone say in conversation. It's not because women aren't capable, it is because the duties that women usually end up performing in life don't give them the opportunities to be enlightened. I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying that this is what I heard.
But that's not typically how it's presented.
Mm,
It's just presented as you can't attain enlightenment, therefore, you might as well go do all this work because the men are busy
uh,
getting enlightenment,
mm.
right?
Well, yes,
And
there's
you'll
many.
just have to wait.
Yeah.
You'll just have to wait for your rebirth and then come back as a man, obviously. And then you can get your enlightenment. But this time around, sorry, you're
Mm,
going to be the servant who does all the work while
mm,
he's busy doing his thing. And
yeah.
all of the religions have a version of that.
Yeah.
All of them. Every
I just want to be clear.
single
I wasn't
fucking
doing that
one.
in terms of being apologetic for the idea, but it was just the idea I had heard because I would offer it's a lot of blowing smoke.
Mhm. But
Yeah.
the reframe
Hmm.
tells you how it actually works,
Yeah.
which is okay, you can't attain enlightenment, therefore, do all this work and understand that that's your position. It's a bit like the caste system in India. If you're
Right.
born into the untouchable caste, then basically you figure, well, okay, that's my lot. This is what I've been born into. It's my karma, and all I can do is shovel shit. That's my life. And so many millions that have been born into that caste have accepted it that way. There are very few every now and then that say, excuse me, no, but they have a hell of a battle because all of the layers of the caste system will say, no, really, that's where you are. So this is your lot.
Mm,
Don't look for anything else. And that's the treatment women get too, is like, this
yeah.
is your lot. Don't look for anything else. And no, no, and no. But where women buy into that, that's that's a big part of the problem that we have right now. It's the participation in this kind of bullshit
Mm,
that keeps everything going.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a
Oh,
thing. So yeah,
yes.
you guys go get your enlightenment. Good for you. Meanwhile, we're going to burn it down.
Here's my kind of, as you were saying that, what really struck me. It's not new for me today, but that with the way it hit me, it is new. So basically, the way the people who are least likely to be enlightened are, in my own personal opinion, in my understanding, are the people most likely to become enlightened. And I'll
Okay, say
put
that
it to you.
again.
The people who are said to be least likely to be enlightened
Okay.
are the people most likely to be enlightened in
Okay.
reality.
Okay.
And I'll give you this idea. So the idea of women can be enlightened, and if you go based on the idea that I gave you, that women's tasks do not permit them to become enlightened because they're whatever. But if you look at it that way, all the tasks given connect you most to life. And it's that connection to life that's going to bring you to enlightenment, not the isolating yourself, reading books, quoting people, following other people. It's actually connecting with what life actually is. And everyone, the untouchables, all their tasks make them in contact with life because without them doing the work, life does not continue. So you actually have a better chance of being enlightened in that kind of work than you do by living in luxury, by everyone deferring to you, basically, because you have to connect the things. You have no choice. You can't give life arm's length and stay in your
True.
fortress or your tower or whatever. You actually have to be there, involved in
True.
it.
Still, the whole
Yeah.
idea that, after however many thousands of
Yeah.
years for Indian culture, that
Mm-hmm.
they still have the caste system very much in place is mind-blowing to
Yes.
me. But other cultures have a version of it,
Mm-hmm.
like your socioeconomic groups.
Yes.
And hey, if you're born this color or this religion or this whatever, then you're never going to reach X point, right? Like trying to have a woman president in the US, for example.
Right.
Hell, the country couldn't even handle a black man, so they're certainly not going to handle a woman being president. Like that's just not going to
Mm-hmm.
work. But other countries do. It's different countries have their groups that they
Mm-hmm.
simply marginalize to the point that they hold them down and say, no, you cannot do this. This is for this group of people, and you don't belong to that group of people. And that is in effect what happens here in the US, very much so, and it's getting worse, not better. And we've
Yeah.
talked before about women being in proximity to power, thinking that, that means I have power. Girl, you are the first one up against the
Mm-hmm.
wall when the revolution comes. Like you are going to be the scapegoat. that goddamn fast. You're not gonna have time to do your hair. So,
Mm.
and we see it over and over again.
But that's kind of what I'm getting at. So, like, because all the videos I've been seeing this week about people, enlightenment, it's like the only people think you're going to ascend is you, because you're telling yourself you're going to ascend because you're doing something that divorces you from life. Now, to be fair, since I am discussing telemia in this, Aleister Crowley wasn't completely off, but Aleister Crowley had some really serious hangups that were never going to allow him to ascend.
Well, not this time round.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it's interesting because the only reason that the people who are quote unquote deemed less likely to ascend don't ascend is because they buy into what the people who were telling them they're not going to ascend.
And that's a theme for today, I think,
Yeah.
is, participation in your own
Yes.
demise, if you will, certainly your own restriction.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some conversations about that lately with women in the patriarchal system and how we sort of keep it going ourselves as well as having it put on us because we're so used to it. It's been there for centuries and longer that for the longest time we've just accepted that that's the way it is. And there have been, yeah, we want rights, we want to vote, we
Mm.
want this, we want that. But it's always been from a place of it's not ours and we have to fight for it. Whereas the reality is all of this is ours and it has been artificially, it has been incorrectly taken from us. But actually, all of this is ours already. We have every right that a male has.
Yeah.
But inherently,
Well,
you're born and you both arrive the same way, and neither get there without a woman bringing you to life. So how is one worth less than the other? They're
well,
not.
even more interestingly, this is a good example of giving up your power because a lot of the things that are said women couldn't do, they were legally capable of doing. It's just that the people in the positions to give out those services refused to do it, like bank accounts, like loans, like owning businesses, and all that kind of stuff. Women were actually, for the longest time, actually able to, even when they said they weren't supposed to be able to do it, they were actually legally capable of doing it. It was within the law for women to own businesses. It was within the law for women to get loans. It was within the law for women to own property. All those things were there. It was never enforced in that way. And then people gave up their power because they were told, what is it? So the line in Canada was when, because before Confederation, women could vote. And then after Confederation, the right to vote was taken away. And part of the discourse was polite women don't want to vote.
Ah, yes, polite
Yeah.
women don't get involved in politics.
Right. But there was never like,
If ever there was an argument against being a polite woman, that would be a good
yes,
one.
yes. So there were things where officially there was nothing against women doing stuff. It was more social pressure applied.
Well, it's all artificial, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, the whole a woman can't have a credit card without her husband's signature.
Right. That's not
I'm
true.
sorry.
That was
I'm
never
sorry.
systemic.
What?
That was decided by the banks, but it was never a law. There was never anything. The
And
banks never
why?
had the right to do that to people.
But why would they do it? It doesn't make sense
Yeah.
when you look at it from an objective point.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Allow, if you acknowledge that women can have their own bank accounts, then you've got more custom. So it doesn't really make sense to keep it all within the
Well,
guise, other than the boys' club mentality.
right. Well, I was going to say that's if you believe it's about money and it's not about holding power and it's not about, like even if you look at, what was I going to say? Even if you look at capitalism as we know it today, it's still not about money. It's about power. Money is a means to it, but people will spend money on things to do the wrong thing rather than to do the right thing, even if the right thing is cheaper.
True. Hmm.
But if
That
the
seems to
wrong
be the
thing keeps
case.
them in power, they'll spend that money.
And the more money they have, the more people they can buy.
Right. So it's not about keeping money and it's not about a monetary thing. It's about keeping power. And even if it's not legal to do what is being done, and it wasn't legal to prevent women from getting a credit card without their husband's signature, there was no law for it. There was no law. There was nothing against it. It's like in Canada, slavery pretty much ended in Canada pre-Confederation because basically a slave said, you know, I don't want to be a slave anymore. And then they brought her to court, and the judge was like, yeah, there's no law that says she has to stay with you. And then eventually all the slaves went, you know what? Well, I'm out of here then because there's nothing that can be done systemically to me. Like you can make my life miserable socially with social pressure, but you can't legally make me do anything. You can't legally own me even if you paid for me. So
Well, if your life is to be a slave, then frankly, there's nothing they can do to you anyway. Social pressure be damned.
yeah.
What are they going to pressure you with? Will make your life miserable?
Well, right. And that's kind of exactly it. And
They-
so in Canada, slavery pretty much just disappeared because there was no systemic recourse for the slave owners to force their slaves to be slaves.
And yet, it never fully disappeared in the US.
Yeah.
And the mentality of slave owners definitely did not disappear in
Right.
the US.
Well, no, you could, if you, depending who you follow from the legal theory, is that prisons are now the new slavery because you're getting nowhere near what
Yeah,
you should be paid for labor. You're basically, and then it's not surprising to find that all the groups who were slaves are now back in prison in inordinate,
yep,
in higher represented amounts.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's a really good point. That's actually a really good point. hmm That's where the slavery is happening.
yeah,
Well, a lot of it, it's still outside of that space as well. But
right.
yeah, that's the new form of legal slavery.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this species sucks. My
The
God.
people who want to keep power will find ways to keep power within structures that are supposedly not for slavery. But you have to remember, right? The last state to ratify no slavery did it in 2012.
Ooh, which state was that?
I want to say Tennessee, but I don't think it was Tennessee.
In Tennessee. They have a lot going on in Tennessee.
I just know the last state to sign on was 2012 because I remember hearing it and I'm like, wait, what? Slavery was pretty much still a thing in the states until 2000. But yeah, and I've heard even beyond that, slavery was still technically legal because of another technicality that only got ratified even like in the early 2020s, I think, or late
I'm
2000.
just gonna look it up because
Yeah,
I want to see.
yeah. Well, I'd also rather have more
Just
accurate information too.
I'm just
Yeah,
curious. Like it's not that I'm doubting you, but I just want to see what comes up. So keep talking.
yeah. So a lot of things happened. A lot of things weren't legal or were still legal. It just depends on how people applied it. Like, I mean, I can go into stories about, you see it in Canada. There were, even though French education was allowed everywhere, there were still groups of English people trying to prevent French people from having it, like by actively attacking and burning down buildings and stuff like that. So it's not the system that said no, it was the society that said no.
Okay, so it looks like Mississippi.
Mississippi, okay.
Yes. After an administrative oversight left the state's ratification unfiled for over a century, how
Mm.
remarkable is that? The paperwork was finally certified on February 7, 2013.
Ooh, 2013. Mm.
2013.
Yeah.
Wow. And Texas was the last Confederate state to have slaves. They didn't learn of their freedom. The slaves didn't learn of their freedom until more than 2 years after Lincoln's initial proclamation.
Right. I had heard that. There were a lot of people who didn't realize they weren't slaves anymore.
Yeah, and New Jersey,
Mm.
interestingly, was the last northern state to formally end slavery. And that was 1866. But,
Mm.
New Jersey, pretty wild. How
Right.
interesting was that?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like things are
Mississippi does not surprise me, though. Those guys have some
no.
serious freaking
Like
issues.
like it didn't surprise me when I heard the state name. When I first heard
Yeah,
about the story, I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
yeah. No, they have a lot of problems right now politically as well.
Hmm.
So I don't think that, and it's either them or Alabama are right at the bottom of the chain when it comes to education as
Oh, I think
well.
it's Alabama, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
Mississippi's not far behind.
No, that's the yeah. I will say this though. I remember I was watching a cartoon, and one of the characters brought up the point because the characters are two brothers, right? One called Hawk, one called Dove, and the Hawk is very aggressive and stuff like that, as his name would imply, and Dove was a very peaceful one. And Dove, they were in a situation, right, where there was it was a superhero cartoon, so they were actually up against Ares, the god of war, and Dove is trying to like, we need a solution, right? We need to do something to keep people so they can be peaceful. And he says there has to be educational. You know, people just need more education. And then Hawk turns to me and goes, the Pentagon is loaded with people with tons of education, and yet they're still here doing war.
Yes, but they're
Yeah,
not doing the war. They're not involved in the war. They're sending other people to war,
that's true.
which is it's a
Yeah,
bit like a kid playing soldiers, right?
yeah. Actually, yeah, that's how I heard it recently described as war is something that older people declare so that younger people can go out and kill people they probably never hated in their lifetime and probably would have hung out with and been friends with under normal
Uh-huh.
circumstances.
Another way of saying it is war is where old white men
Mm,
send other people's children to die.
yeah.
It's another way of putting it.
Yep.
I'm feeling a little feisty today, as opposed to feeling a little feisty on any other day.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's basically what it is. Those people don't go to war themselves. Did any of
Yep.
Trump Jr.'s go?
No.
No. Anybody in that family go? No, none of them are in Iran right
I will
now.
say this though. If I were at war, I don't know if I'd want those guys near me. Unless they're infantry and I'm sending them out first.
But yes, agreed. And the larger point is
Yeah.
they make damn sure their people don't go.
Yeah.
They make sure it's other people, other families, and the red states are the ones that have the most fodder. They're the army
Yeah.
rich ones, right? So I love it or hate it, have a look at the stats and you'll see where the soldiers come from.
Oh
And
yeah.
they're the
What
red
is it?
states.
So that's another one, right? So that's another example of slavery under another name
Yep.
because the GI Bill. Oh, you're broke? Oh, well, you know what? We'll pay for your school or whatever, and then all you got to do is be in the military for a while.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yep.
you'll get
And then
educated, but it's
you'll
just going to potentially cost you your life. That's fine.
and then you'll get all the veterans discounts and help, except when you become a veteran, you
Yeah.
realize that they have absolutely jack going on for
Mm,
you. Um, and if you need healthcare or something, yeah, you can get it as a veteran, but it's going to take you a hell of a long time, and you'll probably die while you're waiting. But
yeah.
it's okay because you once said that you'd give up your life for your country, so you didn't necessarily say it had to be on the battlefield.
Yeah. But hey, we thank you for your service.
Just a smidge
Yeah.
cynical.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well, I say
yeah,
that.
it's another form of slavery.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to say back in the day when MySpace was still a thing going on, and when the second, yeah. So when the second Gulf War started, and there was a guy who retired Navy because he was injured, so he, got an honorable discharge for an injury, and he has a sticker on his car, right, saying, he's Navy, and he says this whole bullshit about people like, thanking you for your service and really, supposedly respecting the troops. That's bullshit. He said because he had shared that his car broke down on the freeway, and he waited an hour for to finally get a tow truck. He says nobody stopped, nobody did nothing. All the thank you for your service. He says like, and the sticker can be seen. He says it's not like you miss it, you'll miss it. He says like it's in a prominent position. He says and no one stopped, no one made any efforts. Bullshit.
Yeah, so the mistake he made
Mm.
is thinking that the words mean more than the words. Like
Yeah,
whenever there's a mass shooting, actually they're not even bothering anymore. But for the longest time, when there's a mass shooting, you get the whole NRA
yeah,
thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Right. Like what prayers? And
yeah.
exactly what thoughts? And how about some Second Amendment changes, like can we have a
Mm,
little gun control? Oh, no, 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 no. But thoughts and prayers, right?
yeah.
Thank you for your service is the same thing. People just trot it out because it's the polite thing to do.
Right.
But do they mean it? I mean, really? I remember being at the airport sitting next to this older chap
Mm,
who'd got his Vietnam vet hat on.
all
And
right.
so I just started talking to him and
Mm,
asking him, so, what was the Vietnam War like for you? And how long were you there? And so on and so forth. He had a really interesting perspective. But I had a great conversation with this
mm,
guy, and I gotta say, I didn't say thank you for your service because I'm not feeling it,
mm,
like for the Vietnamese people, that was not a fucking service for a
no.
starter. And it was their country that everybody went to,
Right.
right? So no, I'm not seeing it as a service in that regard. Now, was the US in danger? No, so I'm not seeing it as a service in that regard. Was this guy brave? Sure. Okay, to go into a situation like that, you have to have a degree of that or a
Mm,
degree of invincibility, like you think that
yeah.
you're a superhero, which is why they like teenagers to go into the army, right?
Mm,
Because they are at that stage where they
yes.
think they're invincible and that they will follow orders. They're very easy to, manipulate and
Mm,
browbeat into it. But I thoroughly enjoyed talking to this guy, and he was very interesting, and we parted company on really good terms. But at no point did I feel the need to say thank you for your service.
well,
And to his credit, he didn't
yeah,
look for me to say it because
no.
that was good.
And I find interesting because when that whole first concept started coming up, where people started saying that, right, to build up morale and stuff like that, I'm like, why would I thank someone for their service? I don't know what their record is like. For all I know, this is like a massive war criminal, and I don't know. Just because you're wearing a uniform
Yeah,
doesn't mean I know you did the right thing.
it's
Yeah.
interesting. I had this experience where someone found out I was a nurse
Hmm.
and said, "Thank you for your service" to me, and
Right.
I'm just kind of looking at them like. Okay, that feels really weird. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not at all sure I'm okay with that because I'm doing a job and it happens to be one that I'm good at. I cannot define why I keep getting pulled into these things where I'm helping people out, but it's just it's in my human design, it's how I'm set up,
Right.
and so it's what I do. But thank you for your service landed really weirdly for me. I just felt like I'm not comfortable with this. Please don't say that again. It just seemed really weird.
Well,
Because it feels like this person is suggesting that you did something totally selflessly, and because it kind of implies that in a way. Um, and that's not the case at all. A lot of soldiers go into the forces to escape poverty.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that for a choice because that's the choice you're given. But the point is, thank you for your service when you're actually escaping poverty isn't entirely congruent, you know?
Well, or you're escaping jail time.
Yeah, there's a
The
bunch of
Marines are
reasons for
famous for
going
that.
in. So,
Yeah.
really, thank you for your service. I don't know. I think something more practical like uh PTSD
Mm,
therapy would be awfully helpful.
right.
Like why don't you do that instead of this hollow bullshit of thank you for your service? Because honestly, it doesn't put food on the table. It
No.
doesn't make your mental health any better. It's like a pat on the shoulder.
Mm,
And I think that's kind of insulting in a way. I mean, my father was a Marine and very definitely he had
mm,
PTSD, and it was not diagnosed at the time because it wasn't known at the time.
mm,
But I can look back at his behaviors and I can say, yep, he had
mm,
PTSD. And he'd got shrapnel from something in Cyprus that he was involved in as a
mm,
Marine. But thank you for your service. Like, I would have smacked somebody with a baseball bat for that one because my entire family went through hell because of
mm.
his PTSD. Don't
Right.
fucking thank anybody for their service. Like, do something about what's left and, get ready for the baseball back because I'm not liking the approach here.
Yeah. Well, I had said it before, right? I told a story on here before. So my maternal grandmother, her father helped his brother-in-law get his benefits because when he had come back from war, he had brain damage, basically. He had suffered brain damage and he was now very violent and would beat my great 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 aunt. And like no one liked him after that, like when he came back.
Hmm.
But my great grandfather went to bat for him because he knew what would have happened. This is like it's not like the guys could like it's a consequence of him going to war. So I don't want
Hmm.
to see to be denied his veteran rights just because, consequences of war has turned him into an asshole basically for everyone.
Right. But I mean, practical solutions rather than thank you for your service would be,
Right.
I think, more beneficial. And honestly, the Vietnam vet that I was talking to,
Hmm.
he sat there very happily telling me that he had a wonderful time and he loved being in Vietnam. And I was so interested, like, really? He said, "Oh yeah, the camaraderie and and all this, that, and the other." Like he had a field day. He had a rare old time. And I haven't heard anybody say that before. So I was really fascinated. But yeah, and this guy, by the way, was a Brit who had
Hmm.
come to the US
Right.
and signed up for Vietnam. Like I think
Oh
he
yeah.
came here to sign up for Vietnam almost. So I could have done with longer to talk to him to figure out exactly what was going on psychologically there. But he had no bad things to tell me at all. So again, given that you don't know who you're saying thank you for your
Right.
service
Well, that's
to,
exactly it. That's exactly my
what
point too. That's
are
exactly it.
you going
That's
to
why I don't
thank
know what
this
you did.
guy?
I don't know why you did it. I don't know what you were over there to do.
Right. This guy was having a party as far as he was concerned. So, and a lot of people lost their lives, both
Hmm.
sides. But I mean, it was their freaking country. So the whole thing is like, I'm not going to say thank you for your service, all right? We're just not going to go there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to diss you because I don't know your story, as you said. It's like
Mm.
that's between you and the deity you talk to.
Yeah. Well,
That's
and the other thing about war, right? I've noticed this watching the second Gulf War because now I was an adult to really, and not just like a new adult. Like I was in my that started when I was like 31, so I could really look at it from an adult's eyes. And I'm like, and I hear all these stories, right? The guys, it's always the same. I went in there and you got to protect your troop, man. You got to protect your war buddies and all that kind of stuff. Your fellow soldiers. And I'm like, that's great, but guess what? You're bombing the shit out of people who did nothing to you. So I can't
right.
look at you like you're a hero. I don't care if you saved your whole troop. You were the assholes in the first place, and you deserved to fucking. As far as I was concerned, you deserved it.
That is kind of the problem. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go as far as to say anybody deserved a
Right.
thing, other than to say you were on their home territory. How
Yeah.
would you expect them to respond?
Yeah.
And, usually wars are won by the people who are being attacked rather than the attackers. And this is it, ultimately, it will go that way because the people who are defending their homeland
Mm-hmm.
have more to lose.
Right.
And so they will go further. They will do more than the attackers
Mm-hmm.
possibly could imagine.
Right.
So I've seen the Coochie tunnels in former
Yeah, you were
Saigon, which
saying
is
that.
now Ho Chi Minh,
Yeah.
and those tunnels, like they built them, they're so narrow. So a Vietnamese who hasn't eaten a whole lot, they
Mm.
can fit down them easy. But the fat Americans, their words, not mine, were
Right.
getting stuck in the tunnels. So that was one way of trapping people. They had a lot, and there was some really horrendous things that they did. They were also really innovative and
Mm.
used nature to their advantage a lot. But why did they do these savage things? Because they were being invaded and freaking napalmed and all the rest of it. Like, what else would you do? You're gonna fight with everything you can find. So yeah, somehow, thank you for your service just doesn't ring
Yeah.
right. It just doesn't. And if that was something that was instituted to boost morale, well, that was a pretty shallow reason for instituting it, and it might be controversial, and it's going to ruffle a few feathers for
Mm.
people to hear us say that, but just examine it.
Yeah.
How do you know that person's motivation? There's nothing wrong if you're escaping poverty that you find a path and that's your path.
Hmm.
You don't have to be thanked for it. And if you're going off like this guy, you're going off having a party and generally enjoying yourself, good for you.
Yeah.
Again, do you have to be thanked for your service? I'm not sure. I mean, I worked in an orphanage in Bangladesh. I helped the Red Crescent as a volunteer, working with street people with, cholera, TB, pneumonia, all
Mm.
kinds of things. Nobody thanked me for my service, and I really would have not appreciated if they had, because it would have felt shallow. Because
Yeah.
lots of other people are doing the same work, and it just happens to be their country, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know. We just don't need to do that, I think.
Oh,
You
true.
just do what you no, okay, here's another point too. No
Okay.
one, no one signs themselves up for something that they think they're going to hate,
True.
right? You do
Mm.
not do something that you think you're going to have a miserable time doing. Not signing up. You might get put into that position sometimes, like the people who are put in
Mm.
prison and used as slave labor, they don't get a choice. But when you sign up for something, it was because you thought you were going to get something good out of it, one way or another,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing
Well,
wrong with owning that.
yeah. And so there's an interesting discussion I usually have, or a debate, if you will, depending who I'm talking with. I tend to say, like, people say, "Oh, I don't know why they say it." I can see sometimes, but they say, "Oh, you're a kind person." I'm like, "Okay." I go, "But it's not hard for me to be kind. Like, it
Mm,
doesn't take a lot of effort. Like the amount of praise you're heaping on me, I'm not really putting in so much effort as the way you're praising me. It's not hard for me to. In fact, it's painful for me to leave that person in that situation. So I'm
right.
actually, and I'm not here to open the debate of are people inherently selfish, but it would be harder for me to be cruel to someone than it would be for a cruel person to be kind to someone. Like person who's really cruel and would rather do something shitty to you has to put more effort into being kind than I do. So
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And if
yeah,
it costs you something to be kind,
right.
that's a different matter. Something that leaps to my mind
Hmm.
is an example when I went to the UK with my kids, and I was jet lagged to hell.
Right.
And I'd gotten in this car and I left my wallet on the roof of the car while I'm getting the kids in and everything.
Right.
And we drove off. And later that day, I had a phone call from this very Welsh police officer who was clearly having a good time
Mm-hmm.
teasing me, he's telling me your name, and he's going through this whole thing. And it turned out that someone had seen the wallet on the roof of the car. They saw it fly off the roof as we
Mm-hmm.
drove off, and the guy grabbed it, got on his bike, and pedaled after us as fast as he could, yelling, and we didn't notice him. And so he went to the police station and handed in the wallet with all the cards, all the money, and I'd just arrived, so I'd got some cash with me.
Right.
And he handed the whole thing in. Now, what was important about that was I was so blown away that everything was intact in this wallet that I wanted to give the guy something as a
Yeah.
thank you. And so the police officer was a little reluctant, but eventually said, well, this is the address. And when I went to the place where this guy lived, he had got sheets nailed up at the windows for curtains.
Right.
You could see, I'm kind of banging on the door and kind of poke my nose through the window at the same time because people,
Mm-hmm.
and we do that.
Yeah.
And he got mattresses on the floor. And this guy had got three kids and single dad, no freaking money whatsoever. The neighbors were coming out like, "Who the hell are you?"
Mm-hmm.
and "Go away, leave him alone," kind of thing. So they'd obviously got his back, and they thought we
Right.
were, Social Security or something coming
Mm-hmm.
around. And I just like put some money in an envelope and said, "Look, it's not a lot, but thank you," and shoved it under his door. This guy had every reason to hang
Right.
on to that wallet. 100%. And nobody would have known. He could have
Right.
at least taken all the cash out. And he didn't touch 1 cent, 1 penny. He didn't take a thing. Now that, if ever there was a person
Hmm.
holding a whole bunch of temptation in his hand, it was that guy. And I don't know that he stopped for a second to consider what he could have done with that money.
Right.
And that to me, that's a whole, yeah, that person, it cost him something to be kind. It cost him something to be honest. Uh, Literally, physically, metaphorically, all the things.
Right.
Like he got three kids to consider,
Yeah.
and clearly no money.
Right. So that's interesting, right? So consider what he would have must have felt would have what he must have would have felt like if he hadn't given the money back because he decided his kids needed it.
See, that's the thing. You could easily justify that to yourself. I think any human could argue themselves into a place of, well, I needed it more, right?
Right.
That's humans are good at that.
Hmm. So, but imagine if he'd have taken that thing. Think about the cost to him after, how he would have felt.
Depends.
Like I'm under the impression that because he made the effort to chase down on the bike and then go to the police and have it brought to you, that if he'd have kept that money, it probably would have ate at him.
It would seem so,
Yeah.
but most people that wouldn't be the case, would it? You'd have a, oh, look, my kids need food, my kids
Mm.
need new clothes, my kids need shoes, they need whatever. And 100%, you've got, well, I'll give the cards back, but I'm totally going to
Right.
keep the cash. I'll just deliver it to the police station anonymously. There was a number of things that he could have done,
Yeah.
and he could have excused them all away, but nope. Absolutely, I was blown away when I saw the conditions this guy was living in. I was blown away that
Mm.
first of all the wallet was handed back as was. That in itself was massive. But and the fact he chased us down, couldn't get us, went to the police station, like seriously trying hard, right?
Hmm.
But the fact that he took nothing out of it and he got nothing at home was just like, wow, I wish I could afford to give you what was in this wallet, mate, because I would if I could. I could not, but I gave him something. Um, whatever I gave him, I can't remember how much it was now, but it can't have been enough for the gesture that he did. But again, it was what I could do.
Right.
Um, but that's kind of an interesting when you think about how that person is made up, like how their personality is, their values, and how they stick to them. It's just really interesting to see
Yeah.
that. Like, I wonder how he was in other areas of his life. I don't know, but
Yeah. There's actually a whole episode we can do on just that.
yeah, those neighbors certainly thought that somebody was coming after him for
Yeah.
something. They were doing their best to get rid of me so that he wouldn't be in trouble.
And
So.
that's good.
I suspect he was working as well as collecting unemployment, something like that. That
Yeah.
that often happens in the UK anyway. Um,
Well, I mean, if you look at the story of Walmart in the United States, they're pretty much actively subsidized by the government because a lot of their employees are on food stamps and stuff like that. So because they don't make enough money.
uh-huh. Yes. Oh, don't even get me started on that one. That is a whole episode. Those guys are
Yeah.
absolute
But
disgrace. Very
and then
Christian family,
you
by the way.
yeah. And then you contrast that with like since I've already brought his name up, Kevin O'Leary, right? This whole discussion is that, if a jurisdiction doesn't offer up incentives for a billionaire to build something there, why would the billionaire build there? I don't know, because you have more than you need for money and you could help that community or whatever. I don't know.
Right?
It's not like you're
Like,
hurting for anything.
yeah, because you're a decent human being, despite all the temptation to be otherwise,
And
you know?
it's funny, right? So, like, if you're a multi-billionaire, even if you have like $2 billion, God forbid you decide you can't live with less than 1 billion and you put that aside just for yourself and then just take your excess and just do good works. You're
Hmm.
still ridiculously wealthy beyond any need that you could ever have. Like you can't
Absolutely.
literally, you can't spend yourself into poverty because there's really nothing. There's no amount of food. There's no amount of like house that you're going to live in that's ever going to spend you into poverty. And like, and that's sorry, it's bringing me off on a tangent a little bit. Like the idea of the 1%. It's a bad
Hmm.
number to begin with because people making like $200,000, $300,000 fit in that category, and they can still spend themselves into poverty by just buying nicer houses and buying richer food. So like they're still in a position of jeopardy. But once you get a certain, I don't remember what the number is, but past a certain number, there's no amount of money you can spend on your needs that are ever going to put you in poverty ever.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, you have some billionaires who and millionaires and what have you who do decent things. Taylor Swift. Like, I'm not especially a Swiftie by any
Right.
means, but every single person that worked on her tour got big fat checks, like the size that they could get a house with, kind of thing.
Oh,
And
nice.
this is from stagehands and dancers, and like they all got giant checks. That the truck drivers, they all got massive checks from her. That I've seen these reports a few times now, and they're always just like staggered that she gave them that much and completely altered their lives for all of the
Right.
people who worked for her, which was an awful lot of people on that year-long tour,
Yeah.
right? And she did that and handwritten notes and everything for all of them. Like she did the whole thing. She is still stupidly rich. It has not put a dent in her wealth. It hasn't brought her down
Well,
in the rankings or anything. She is, again, never ever going to be poor, but my gosh, she's generous,
yeah.
like
Well,
seriously
that's good.
generous. And that doesn't get that much notice, but massive kudos. Like, okay, you are a decent person because these
Mm,
people work their asses off for you to do your tour. And she actually recognized that and acknowledged it. So you don't have to be a Swiftie to see that
right.
that's a good person right there. I don't love her politics all the time.
Mm,
She's very pro-Palestine,
mm,
etc. But that's her decision to do. However, her behavior
mm,
is decent human being. So, okay, she may be
mm,
mistaken here and there, but she's a
mm.
decent human being.
Right. So yeah. Uh, there's other stuff.
There's always other stuff.
Well, there's like
Oh, I wanted to tell you something.
what?
One of the recordings I did for the summit this past week,
Right.
the person who sat there, because these recordings are just like you and I are talking now,
Right.
we don't have a script. And she sat there and said, I have to tell you that the dragons want to come through today.
Ooh.
And there was dragon energy in that session. And it
What
was
is
so
that?
interesting because my power went out
Oh yeah.
and all kinds of things happened during that session. It was friggin' hilarious. And and I just let it do what it was doing. Like the recording was able to continue, but you could see my
Right.
lights went down and kind of thing
What did
happening.
you have?
That was Agna.
I know. Okay.
I've mentioned her to you before. She
Yeah.
works with Soulfire and Akashic Records and so on.
Right.
But she said that the dragons want to come through today, and I thought, oh, gotta tell Danielle.
Yeah. Yes, because I work with more than enough dragons.
Hmm.
I've even
And
brought more than enough dragons into the world
and
at this
and
point.
that was not long after we'd just done some dragon stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah. So maybe the dragons want to come through right now.
Well, I am seeing some dragons, but the
Hmm.
reticular activating system and all. But I had actually made a conscious decision to shut that frequency off for a little bit because all I was seeing was dragons for a while. And it's like, man, they're not tiny. A lot of them aren't tiny. So
No.
yeah. So, but yeah, because there's a whole the idea of being true to who you are and being connected to what's happening around you is your that's your gateway to your ascension if you're looking to ascend. It's not about doing all kinds of rituals. It's not about attending or finding all these rare books and all that kind of stuff. It's quite literally actually being in contact with life in the truest sense of it. It's literally touching grass. It's literally smelling the flowers. It's literally paying attention how do you react to things. Like a trend I'm noticing in exercise actually.
Okay, I love the way this is leaping around. Go for it.
Uh, well, a lot of the trends in exercise are basically just actually moving, but like actually the to me what I'm seeing as the logical outcome is just basically going out and being like a kid and go play and do all the different movements that you would as a kid, like and all the silly thoughts that come to your mind, like walking on your hands and feet, but like upside down. Instead of like crawling, you're doing the other way.
Hmm.
Because that activates all your like a lot in your shoulder work, your back, like and all different parts of your body because you have to move and connect different muscles and different supporting muscles. And all those are like people are now making programs based on that.
I
But
love
essentially
it.
just playing like a kid.
I love it. That's the things people will make money from.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we overcomplicate things
Yeah.
far too often. And to pull in some threads here,
Mm,
religion is an overcomplication of
right.
how you can relate to your chosen deity, right?
Yes.
How you can relate to the world around you. You don't need religion. It's actually a sidetrack. It's an artificial thing that's pulling you out of the path, right? And so the less is more here, where you
Yeah.
just go straight to nature and talk to your deity. Go out for a walk and
Yeah.
talk to your deity, like it's that simple. The exercise programs that are so
Mm,
complex and you got to have all this expensive equipment and you must have a trainer in order to use the equipment properly, etc., etc. Or you could go out and find a playground and play.
yeah.
That could work. Funnily enough, in Singapore, they have where the HDB flats are now. HDB is it's government housing, so you still
Right.
buy the apartment, but you buy it from a government, so it's cheaper.
Right.
Um, Nothing's cheap in Singapore, but cheaper, more affordable. And those apartment buildings, they have outside playgrounds with equipment that you can work with under your body power, right? You don't
Right.
need electric. So, for example, there's like steps. Think of the elliptical,
Mm-hmm.
only you've got this place where you put your feet and you're hanging onto a bar and you swing your feet. So you're
Yeah.
still getting the elliptical, it's not the circular, but back and forth anyway. And it's under your own power. And a kid would play on it or an adult. And
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of things for adults to do in those playgrounds. It's actually like a gym
Right.
all under your own power. All of these places have these. They're just available for the adults to go and keep fit with no cost, right? It's just a
Mm-hmm.
feature that they add. We could do with that everywhere.
Yep.
So that you don't have to spend the big bucks going and getting the complex equipment and doing all the things. We
Yeah.
overcomplicate. But people make money out of overcomplicating.
I used to do that
Diets, come
actually.
on, we could totally go into the nutrition thing, couldn't we?
Yeah. But I used to do that. Like there was a park near here for well, there is still a park here for kids near not too far from my place. And it's all kid size, but I used to use the monkey bars to do pull-ups.
Hmm.
I would just make sure there's no kids around because I don't want to be in the way of their play. Right? I would go when I would, and if there was no kids, I would just go do a bunch of pull-ups and then be done and then move on. But yeah,
Hmm.
like actually, there's even rocks around here that are used for decorations that for in public spaces that I do use for stretching and stuff like that.
Right. But I mean, it doesn't have to
Mm,
be complicated.
right?
Nutrition doesn't have to be
No.
complicated. We complicate so many things that we then pay people to facilitate, right? Ooh, this is complicated here. Take my money and then
Well,
make it
that's
easy.
yes. that's exactly it. And that has been my whole week. It's like everything is being overly complicated when it's just a question of really just going back to what you would do
Hmm.
normally. Like when I used to be the first job I had, I worked for my grandfather. He had a janitorial company. And so like I would go clean buildings with him. And I would actually just like if I was vacuuming, I would just after like 15 reps on one side, I would just switch hands and I would do 15 reps on the other side because figure, well, I might as well
Yep.
try to balance it out while I'm here doing this. Like, and I was like 13, and I figured, well, I mean, it's like basically working out. I'm doing action, so I might as well just kind of even it out, right? And I would count each side, and I would do it all the time I worked for him. That's what I would do. It would be like a workout. It would just,
Mhm. And it is a workout. It's just we only need so, okay, full disclosure, speaking as somebody who owned a boutique gym in
mm-hmm,
Malaysia and would train women in Malaysia, the reason that you need people like me doing things like
mm,
that is because we're not out there playing and
right,
doing the thing in an uncomplicated way. Now, there was a
right,
little more to that because I did some rehab for people as
mm-hmm,
well, where they're recovering. One was recovering from back surgery, for example, and couldn't sort of roll from side to side, let alone get up. And our aim together was that she would be able to pick up this 40-liter jug and
right.
flip it into the water cooler. That was
Oh, yeah,
the target. We got there. I think, well, we worked together for 6 months, and she was certainly able to do that after about four.
mm,
So going from back surgery and not being able to move very well to flipping, that was worthwhile. But for some people, it was just they wouldn't work out otherwise. They wouldn't
right.
get that movement in.
Well, and
And
that's the thing, right?
no,
Like,
no
yeah,
shade on this one, but it's more just if you're falling into any of these categories we're
mm,
talking about, just think, are you overcomplicating it? Could you do it
right,
for yourself easier?
yeah, yeah. That is something you really have to pay attention to. Are you overcomplicating it? And pretty much for thousands of years now, people have been overcomplicating everything,
Yep.
especially
And
spiritually.
I was going to say, when it comes to witchcraft, do you
Yep.
need the fancy altar? Do you need the, $400 statue that fits just right in the middle,
Yeah.
or whatever it is? Like, no, again, as I'm sure people have heard me say many times by now, the milk carton with the straw in
Mhm.
it that works as a Hindu god for your family, that's about as complex as it needs to get. Doesn't mean there's a problem if you want more there, but you
Right.
don't have to have it. It's the key is to not feeling that you must, and that
Right.
if you don't, it's inadequate, or if you don't, it's not good enough. That's the whole point, is it doesn't have to be anything. Just go for a walk in nature. I like to go outside. We have loads of crows around here, and I absolutely adore those crows. They are so amazing to watch. And because I'm in the mountains, we get these thermals
Right.
and what have you. And I just watch them playing on those thermals, and it's like, that is, to me, that is magical. And that's a connection. And I'm feeling the
Yes.
wind, and we've had some pretty good thunderstorms here the last couple of days too. And I love storms. I've got the dogs now so that they will go outside with me in the storm and
Oh,
play,
nice.
which is good
Yeah.
because 6 months ago they wouldn't do that when we still had George. He was terrified of storms,
Right.
but all of these will go out and play in it now, which is cool, right?
Hmm.
That's a connection right there. That's
Yeah.
literally, that doesn't cost anything.
Yep. And so that's the big message. Don't overcomplicate. Follow through with who you are, but really don't overcomplicate and don't let people overcomplicate it for you.
Yes, because that leads to feeling like you're inadequate in some way, and that's not
Yep.
true.
Yeah. I know because from my own personal perspective, I did that to myself when it comes to exercise for years. And I used to, this is the part that kills me about me. My intuition about doing things is spot on, and I never give myself the credit for it. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I've done lip service to give myself credit for it, but I think of all the things I've done that are now in vogue in exercise, I used to work at I used to work at a place where we did family therapy, and the workers used to say you should write a book, and I'm like, no, I don't have any credentials. I'm not going to write a book. But yet, the reason they would say that is because we'd be talking at lunch, and I'm like, yeah, I was telling people that like 10 years ago, and they're like, well, it just came out, and we're now like putting it in practice. I'm like, okay, well, I came up with that 10 years ago. What are you guys doing? You know,
Hmm.
not to be arrogant. It was just like this is we were just having a normal course of conversation. Or I wouldn't say that. I would just be talking about something, and they're going, shit, that's just like that's the latest theory. What do you?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the latest theory is often somewhere that a person has said, let's uncomplicate this.
right. And I've
And
been doing it with exercise too. Like, so because I have a club foot, there's certain things I can't do the same way other people do it. Like I used to do the, the handsprings, kick and land on your feet, but my club foot would always drag behind because I can't, it doesn't have the same explosive power. And part of that is due because I favored that leg over another, so it doesn't get the same exercise. So I used to come up with different things to do to get off the ground. And I do like spins and whatever. Like, I just spin my legs so I can get up on it. And I would do all those things and I would always play around. And meanwhile, I didn't really realize it. I was always doing stuff like that. And now that's coming into that's what you should be doing stuff like that because it keeps you interested. It's new. Your body tries to adapt to new things. And it's like, great, I've been ahead of myself. But because I was like, no, this is just me wasting time, I never continued with it because I thought, well, okay, that's great. It was fun. Now I'm going to move on and try to do more serious workouts and, you know, really work on my health.
that's one of the things where, when we think everything has to be complicated or expensive, then that leads to feelings of inadequacy when we
Right,
can't achieve that. We can't spend the money on it or uh, you know, get to the fancy gym or whatever it is. And so that's the big message that's coming through for me is to say, look, you don't have to be worried about that. You don't
right.
need any of it. And that's a big point for me.
Yeah. And so what I also want to add was like, so my culmination this week with the whole thing about ascending, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out all these things that people are doing, all these theories people had, all these books people have written. And it's like, no, no, you already had it in you from the beginning. You're just seeing the connection with what you're doing and what actually is what works. I don't know if I worded that right, but like, just the fact that I understood that I was actually following the right thing all along. Not to pat myself in the back. That's not the point of this. What I want people to take away from this is that just listen to yourself. You know who you are. You know what your body needs. You've been taught not to listen to yourself, but listen to yourself. That's the big takeaway for this episode. I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely. And I just want to point out, there's nothing
Right.
wrong with patting yourself on the back either.
Yeah.
That's one of those things we're raised to, oh, don't
Right.
toot your own horn. Don't sort of praise yourself. But on the other hand, it's not bragging if you can do it,
Right. True enough.
right?
Yes, because that's what I'll tell other people. If someone says to me, "Oh, but I feel like I'm bragging," I'm like, "Well, did you do it?" Yeah. Okay. Well, then there's nothing wrong with informing people that you did it. If you make it your whole
Exactly.
personality from going forward, but that's not the same.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Acknowledge what you're capable of, and then you can move on. Yeah.
I think we need to normalize actually, like acknowledging where
Right.
you have something good happening,
Yes.
acknowledge it. Don't do yourself short because other people will do that for you. You don't have to do that for yourself. And that's been a massive lesson for me to overcome. Coming from the UK and having
Yeah.
British parents,
Yes.
if there's one thing you are not allowed to do is say something nice about yourself.
Mm.
So, but that limits you.
Yes.
That stops you from doing so many things because if you want to do something new or different, innovative, you can't because you're held small by this idea that,
Yeah.
well, you can't do that. Who are you to do that? Excuse my
Right.
dogs.
They're not really showing up. They're not coming up sound wise. So.
That's good. Well,
Mm.
we just had a delivery, but I mean, they didn't start until the delivery is leaving, not when
Mm.
they arrived.
Yeah.
What a useless lot they are.
Yeah.
Anyway, they clearly don't feel the need to earn their food.
Yeah. 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 I can see them there looking at the window. Yeah.
Yeah. They're very gleeful that they were able to tell the delivery person to go away.
Yeah. I used to always tell that to people, because I go for long walks and, you go through different neighborhoods and the dogs aren't familiar with you. So they start barking and I'm like, they're like a bunch of drunk frat boys. It's like they're not going to do anything, but they're going to yell at you like as if they're so intimidated.
Yeah, yeah. These dogs are like that. They're all talk and
Yeah.
not a lot of action. But they're yeah, hopeless lot. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much the message. I don't know if you have anything else.
No, I think we've covered a lot, and some was controversial, some not so
Yeah.
much. And it might not be the things I thought was controversial, but
Well, and that's one of the big lessons I learned in life. You think something might be controversial, but it's the thing you thought was totally fine that
uh-huh,
got people. I've had people
exactly.
mad at me for days, and I'm like, "What the hell are you mad at?" Right? Because then I'm like, "What the hell are you mad at?" Like I didn't say anything. And you're like, "Oh
Right.
no, you said this," and I'm like, "And?"
Uh-huh.
And they look at me
Yeah.
like, "How do you not see it?" I'm like, "Because I don't see it."
But you know what? Actually, okay, so
Yeah.
that's something that ties into what we've been saying, which is overcomplicating things.
Right.
Like when you're trying to be in other people's heads, if you will, to determine what they might find offensive
Right.
or controversial, chances are you're going to get it wrong. So just do your own
Right.
thing. Don't worry about it.
Well, yeah,
It's do
that's
not worry
exactly it.
about it.
All right. So, you know what? Once again, she's Michaela Gaffin Stone.
And he is Daniel Dubois.
Until next time.
À la prochaine.